Bienvenidos. Welcome to the Careers Without Connections podcast, the podcast for first generation professionals who are building their careers from scratch and navigating unfamiliar spaces. I'm your host, Gianna Linares. Today's episode is going to be all about being a young and ambitious first generation professional and what it takes to start a marketing agency at the age of 21, what entrepreneurship at a young age looks like. And also, this episode is for anyone who wants to learn the ins and outs of social media marketing, which brings me to our really amazing guest that we have today. Vanessa Valencia is a first generation Mexican immigrant, entrepreneur, founder, and content creator. She's been breaking down barriers for Latinos in the marketing industry for years, building on a passion for marketing that she started with when she was just 12 years old and learning marketing. By 16, she was already working with brands. And at 21, she launched her own social media agency, all before graduating with her bachelor's degree in public relations. She is the founder and owner of Avrios Media, which is a marketing agency, and she's worked with major brands, including Armani and Kate Spade, among others too. So thank you so much for being here today, Vanessa.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk all things business, marketing, and social media.
Yeah. So I want to first ask you a little bit about in your content, you've talked about growing up in a low income household and being raised by a single mom. I'd love for you to share a bit about how your lived experience have influenced the success you've been able to achieve as such a young entrepreneur.
Oh my gosh, this is such a really good question because I think there's like two parts to it. And I think the first part is just the fact that I grew up with a single mom. So seeing your mom having to push forward as an immigrant herself as well is very much kind of gives you this mindset of okay, I don't want to give my mom any problems because she is the one that's trying to provide for us and she's a single mom trying to push through. So during this time when I was really young and she was a single mom trying to push through, she was actually working 2 to 3 jobs. So she was really hustling, trying to make sure that me and my brother were okay. So I saw that and I was just okay, she's also a woman hustling. I should be doing the same. But also me and my brother grew up seeing her work all the time. So we never wanted to give her any issues. That is why me and my brother were always on top of our school. So we never had bad grades. We never did bad in school. We never were getting in fights in school and any of that because me and my brother, we were no, that can't even be a thing that we do because that would be added stress. So that's the first part of it. The second part is the fact that my mom, she grew up in Mexico and she was top of her class always and was really good in school. Because she wasn't able to pursue higher education and she came over here later on, she always kind of told us that seeking higher education was something that was super important because she couldn't do it, but because she came over here to give us a better life, we should take advantage of that. And I think as Latinos, in order for our community to get better and for us to move forward and push forward as a community, I really do think that it is important to push that as well. Higher education, making sure we seek education, make sure we want to do better for ourselves, but also for our community. So I think those two parts are a huge reason as to why I try to be a hustler, but also because I'm also an immigrant myself. So just being an immigrant is very much their mentality, just in general. I do think that it's immigrants in general or first gens are very hardworking because they see their parents work super hard. So we want to work super hard to give back or to just progress our family.
How does your mom feel about you being such a young entrepreneur and doing such big leaps now?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, first, she still doesn't understand what I do, which is kind of funny because I think parents never really kind of understand what you do. It just reminds me of this one random video that my friend told me about. And she was talking about real estate and how real estate works. The video, the parent was saying oh yeah, my daughter, she actually just steals houses and sells them to other people when that's not really what real estate is. But because, their parents don't really know, they kind of just say what they think it is. And so my mom, she's just well, I don't really know what you do. I just know that you do something with social media. and you work with businesses. So she doesn't really understand exactly what I do, but she tries her best to, ask questions, try to understand. But of course, they're never going to 100% know, especially in the United States when they have like all these other different things going on. And, it's very different in their country as well. And then also depending if they saw out higher education or cut up, sometimes they don't understand certain things as well. But my mom, she's like super supportive and she thinks that it's cool that I have a business. She just does never really know exactly what I do, but she's always super supportive and she's always like, yeah, like, keep going, strive for more and be that influence that maybe people do not have. So, yeah.
How has she reacted to you doing like brand deals and like,
Oh, yeah.
being able to make money off of like posting videos of yourself online? I've seen other people who are also content creators who have a bit more established platforms and they talk about how their parents like just don't understand how it all works. Like they're like, "Why are you doing this?" and how is this happening right now?
That is so funny because when I had that like Kate Spade collaboration, I was telling my mom about it. I heard a text and she was just like, wait, I know what Kate Spade is. She's like, that's so good. And she's like, yeah, if you need me for anything, let me know. So she just like thought that was like super cool. And I think it was when I first had like my first like actual brand deal. So I was 21, had like my first brand deal with Bioma. And, this is a skincare brand. They sent me so much product. And my mom was just like, wait, so, like, how exactly does it work? I don't really, like, understand. So, like, they send you stuff and, like, what do you do? She's like, "I don't get it." So, like, talking to her about that, she was like, "Wow, I didn't know that this was an option, didn't know that this was a thing," until she started, like, knowing what TikTok was too. I believe it was last year when she was like, "Wait, like, what exactly is TikTok?" Because she never had TikTok, nothing, so she doesn't really understand. But my mom, she's just, like, super supportive. She's like, "If you need anything, let me know. If you need me to record something or take pictures, also let me know." And I mean, it is like very fairly new. Influencer marketing still fairly new. So the fact that people can do that and get money online, whether that's like monetization, brand deals, etc., is really cool. But also like our parents sometimes think like, wait, so like what you post and they pay you or they send you stuff? Like that is so cool. And I still think till this day it's like really cool because it's still fairly new.
How new is it exactly?
I think it was like 2018. So that was when influencer marketing first started. Like they were starting to create like PR lists and sending product and gifted collaborations. So that was like still kind of newish because people were now starting to like receive product and kind of like create ads with certain influencers that had influence and things like that. So I still remember into the like around 2018, it was still really new. And I started to see like, wait, like now these influencers are working with this brand, kind of like that.
Yeah, that is really not that long ago in the grand scheme of things. Do you have any sort of predictions for the direction that it's going in? I feel like a lot of people are always saying that it's so oversaturated and like it's too late to do anything in the social media space and everyone has a podcast now, but the
Mhm.
creators economy only projected to like I think essentially double in the next couple of years.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's like extremely lucrative and profitable. But I think right now we're like at a place where like social currency is so much more valuable. Like having influence is so much more valuable than just like slapping your name on a product or a service. If you are somebody that has like a really like a following, and what I mean by following, I mean like a community that really likes your content or likes you, it is so much more valuable than just like somebody that has like a named brand. Like right now, people are resonating with influencers and content creators that are doing the same things as them, are interested in the same things, have the same background, than just somebody that has like a brand and like that's it. Like there has to be more. And influencer marketing is only getting bigger because of that social currency that influencers and content creators have. So I only honestly see it going up because it's only been going up. And a lot of people like invest so much in that, like businesses and brands invest so much in influencer marketing because of that social currency that they have as influencers and influence, of course, that people have.
That makes sense. And I feel like the other interesting piece to that as well is that right now the barrier is like lower than ever to entry. That doesn't make it easy at all. Like building something from scratch is super hard. And I think a lot of people, of course, what blows up online is like the overnight success stories, and people want to believe and accredit people's grand successes to like, oh, you got lucky. But the reality is like a lot of these really, really big content creators and influencers, like it took them years to get that traction. I have this really interesting theory actually that I always think about that the like OG content creators like the D'Amelios, Addison Rae, all that, I feel like they became so successful because when they started out, there was no incentive. They had no idea that posting like dancing videos of themselves online was going to blow up as big as it did. And so
Mhm.
I feel like their underlying just like natural personalities and desires in the world was just craving that attention of like the likes and the comments and like I feel like they already had this inner desire and this fulfillment and this comfort with just being super visible and it ended off paying like crazy dividends. But that's why I feel like those people are so successful is because nowadays a lot of people are doing it with some underlying motive, of course, because we know it's possible. Like we know that you can monetize your
Yeah.
podcast. So why wouldn't you want to do that? And that's a
Yeah.
wonderful thing. And I'm not going to like lie and say that like, yeah, I wouldn't love to monetize my podcast or do brand deals myself.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of people forget too that they were like the kind of like the first people that were on TikTok that actually were like dedicated, right? Like when we think about like the YouTubers, like the OG YouTubers, the reason why they were so big and they blew up is because they were also very consistent and dedicated. So that is why they're those people that were known for that like OG YouTube era of like makeup or just like silly videos. And for like the D'Amelio, Addison Rae, people, like they're the ones that were kind of like on TikTok, but like the first people to stay dedicated. So then like there of course are other creators that started in the beginning and were very dedicated, of course, but it is because that consistency, right? There's a lot of influencers and content creators that want that to be their full-time job. And like, yes, like everything that comes with it and everything like super cool. Everybody thinks about like the brand trips and the PR packages and the brand deals and all these different things. And like those are all amazing and great. But the difficult part is being consistent. Like, can you be consistent? And can you be consistent even when you think that nobody's watching and nobody cares? Because that is what's going to divide like the people that genuinely actually want it as a career and people that just want the things that come with a career. And so that is like the difference there that I always see as well. And that is kind of like the difference that I see between somebody that's successful and then somebody that just kind of like wants to do it in theory, but by practice, it's kind of like, no.
Content creation is a highly profitable skill and a really high value skill, but it is really intimidating because it puts you in a position to be sharing so much of yourself so quickly and so openly. That can be used really strategically and be really advantageous. But I feel like every time I talk to people that they're like, oh, I've thought about it or I've been curious about it, or I get a lot of comments of like, I could never do that. Or people online, of course, are trolling and they're calling it cringe. But I think it takes a certain level of confidence and comfortability in yourself. And it really, for me, has required a lot of self reflection of who am I and what do I want to share? Because, you know, like a personal brand doesn't have to be like every single last little detail of your story. But to my point of if you intend to do it in a very I wanna say strategic, but that's a little bit too technical of a word, then, you know, you essentially choose who you are online, and that can be really beneficial, depending on what your goals are and how you wanna take it.
Yeah, I think like that is like the beauty of like personal branding. I love talking about personal branding because so many people, like you mentioned, so many people think, wait, but like if I get online, I have to like share everything when it's like not really. You can share like what you want and it's on your terms because it's your social media. So really like you don't have to share things that you don't want to share. You don't have to feel pressured to share certain things because it's at the end of the day, it's like your social media. And you can like share whatever, you know? But so many people they're like, wait, but everybody's talking about like themselves and family dynamics and what about if I don't share enough and this is not. But it's like it's still going to be on your terms and there's always a community for everybody. You as a content creator, you as an influencer, you can like share whatever you want. And if you don't want to share certain things, you don't have to. I feel like there's always just that pressure, like you mentioned, like, wait, but like what should I share everything? Like I'm a little confused, like I don't know. But really like you don't have to, you know? And I feel like I have a lot of conversations with like content creators or wanting to be content creators as well. And they always feel like, wait, but I have to talk about this because everybody is. And you really don't have to. Just like a trend, you don't have to participate in a trend, but if you want to, you can. It's kind of like that.
What do you feel like is one of the biggest misconceptions about personal branding when it comes to being able to start one or like create one for yourself? What do you think people really commonly get wrong a lot?
Yeah, I guess like it would be that, or like they feel like that pressure of like sharing everything because a lot of people share everything and they think that if they share all these different things, people will feel connected to them. But in actuality, like you can choose what to share, what not to share, and people can feel just as connected to you. Like somebody can talk about their whole like background story and what it took them to get like a certain job. And that will still be, people will still feel connected to them. Or you can just talk about how you got that job and you don't have to talk about your background and people can still feel connected. So I feel like a lot of people think that they have to share like their entire background and how they came to be in order to build a very strong personal brand. But really, you just have to be somebody that's like likable online or somebody that people feel connected to. And so I feel like it would be that, like, that's like the biggest thing. And I feel like I have so many conversations with people, and it's genuinely that. Like, wait, but like, what about if I don't share too much or people don't feel that connected to me? So, yeah.
I want to go back to you and Avrios Media. And I want to hear about what it was like starting your social media agency while you were still finishing school. What did that look like for you?
Oh my gosh, it was so hard at the beginning because I was 2.5 years deep in biology. So I took the OChem, I took the genetics, all these different things. I was taking the very difficult classes. And then I was like, wait, but I'm about to switch. So I have to kind of like start all over, but also like I have to take classes during the summer so I can graduate on time. And during that time, I was still like starting off with freelancing and then like switched it to kind of like agency model. And then I was like getting clients, searching for clients, doing client work, but also marketing myself, but also helping my clients. So it was like so much at the same time. But I still managed to do it because I was like, wait, but this is like something that I want to do. But I did limit myself with how many clients I could take in because it was a lot of work managing school, managing clients, managing client work, finding clients, just like me marketing myself. So it was like a lot to balance and also like switching my major and having to graduate on time and having to catch up. But honestly, it was, like, a lot, but I really wanted to do it so bad full time, so I was like, "I just have to, like, lock in and just do what I have to do because I really want this to be, like, my full-time career." Like, I can see myself doing this, and I can't see myself doing anything else. It was just, like, a lot of, like, balancing, but it was still a lot to do.
And how has your business changed from then to now? Like, what has your journey kinda looked like as you've been growing it?
I think, like, in the beginning, I was limiting myself with how many clients I could take in because of college. After college, I took more clients in. I also just, like, revamped, like, how I approached my services, got better, but also started to see, like, what I was good at and what I actually enjoyed. So, in the beginning, it was just, like, a bunch of, like, managing and social media and content and strategy. But over time, I started realizing that I was actually really, really good at marketing and sales. So I started working with more businesses more like internally, kind of like if there was a launch of product, a new product, and it didn't do well, or they launched something and they didn't get any signups or something like that, they would usually come to me and say, like, hey, like, I don't know what happened. And we were able to kind of like work through that. And then they would make like more sales than they ever did after. So I was starting to be really good at that, like the whole marketing and sales. So I would definitely say, like, really trying to see like what I was good at and trying to do better in terms of like the services that I was offering. And you just start to learn more as you go, which is also pretty crazy because yes, marketing changes all the time, but also you start to figure out what you like, what you don't like. And then you just start learning even more things that you didn't even like consider, or even from people that were or are in the industry for so long. So that is like another thing too. And just like different perspectives. I think that is another thing that I truly do love. Like learning different perspectives from different people. And yeah, it was just like a bunch of like changes and trying to see like what I like, what I don't like, what benefits clients. And I just got really good at just marketing and sales. And I was like, I think content marketing is for me. And that's just like what I do the most.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to work on their content marketing skills and use content marketing to really build their personal brand and build their social media?
Yeah, so I think just like in general, right? Like marketing right now, like people are talking about how it's like very difficult to break in and like the job market and graduating and everything. Me and my brother always talk about how, graduating college is one thing, but graduating college doesn't guarantee you a job. It just guarantees you education, but it doesn't guarantee you a job, right? And so when it comes to marketing, it's the same thing. I feel like a lot of people still have like this idea of like, oh, once I graduate like college, I know that I'll have like a job like right outside college when that isn't necessarily like a guarantee. That's something you have to kind of like go out of your way to go find because it's not like you're just going to get offered it. Like you have to go and find it. And so with marketing, it's very competitive and the job market in itself is very competitive. But in order to break into marketing, I would say like having a really good portfolio is really good. I think in a lot of industries, you can't just like solely rely on a resume anymore. There has to be more like projects, or there has to be a portfolio, or there has to be something else. So with marketing, breaking into marketing portfolio is like a non-negotiable because it shows what you can do and not just like what you say you can do. So that is like the one thing. And then the second thing is like really networking and talking to people is a big thing. I think a lot of people are scared to talk to people, but you never know where it can lead you. Like us, for example, we got connected and here we are. So I feel like a lot of people are just like really scared to talk to people, but talking to people is one of the best things. But when it comes to specifically content marketing, I think talking to people that have done it is like amazing. I think that I've learned way more talking to one of my mutuals now, and now we're really good friends, talking to her and seeing her approach and how she views content marketing and how she goes about it. And I think that taught me way more than anything, honestly, like really talking to people that have been in that industry and have done it longer than me. And honestly, their approach is just like great. So I think when it comes to specifics, I really do think like learning from other people is the best way.
What did you learn from this friend? What was the piece of advice that you were like, aha, you're right. Like,
Yeah,
that's
I
a really
think it
good
was
point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was, like, a lot of things, honestly. It was just, like, the way that she approached it versus, like, everybody else, and I think when I met her and I saw how she approached content marketing, it was very different, and I started to realize, like, wait, she's actually somebody that genuinely understands content marketing, but there are so many people that say that they do, but they don't. And she was just somebody that, like, actually could do it in so many different aspects, not just, "Oh, I can only work with specific people," because a lot of people say that they can only work with specific people, but it's really because that's all they know and they don't know how to work with other industries. So she really taught me that if you actually know content marketing, you can work with anybody. And she kind of like showed me the approach that is really like the framework, I guess, that can be like applicable anywhere. And so that was very valuable for me.
So, me personally, I feel like the deeper I've gotten into social media, I hear so many different subsets of it and so many different buckets. Like, once, because there's
Yeah, yeah.
content like strategy, there's content marketing, personal branding,
Yeah,
there's social media managers, and they're all incredibly different, but also so similar.
yeah.
And so I say all that to say is I still struggle with tying in content marketing into personal branding and where that overlaps and how they kind of work together.
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like there are so many different people that say different things, but I think it's because their approaches are very different. And I think like to a question that I got asked recently is like, how do you suss out the people that know and the people that don't know? And I think like the biggest thing on social media is like if somebody doesn't know how to have like a framework that can mold with anybody, then that is already something that is kind of like, wait, but like, why can't you work with anybody? Because yes, some people niche down, yes, and that's great if they work with one industry. But if you know how to do a certain framework or a certain thing, you can honestly work with anybody. There isn't no like niching down or you can only work with one person. So that's like one thing. And then the second thing is like, okay, do you know kind of like the difference between like social media marketing and social media strategy, things like that? And a lot of people, they'll follow like so many like social media strategists and things online because they say that they know how to do this and they know how to do this. But um, when it comes to, for example, like hashtags and SEO and captions, and you have to use hooks and all these different things, that's not the most important thing when creating content. It's actually creating content. The hashtags and all these different things don't matter if you can't create content to begin with. There are so many people that try to do like the loopholes of, oh, wait, but my hashtags, but my SEO, what do I have on my screen, but like my editing, but like I should do this and have like this high level editing, but it doesn't matter if you still can't create content. Just creating content, like just creating it. So a lot of people struggle with that. Now, when it comes to like content marketing and personal branding, um, I would I would say that content marketing is a little different when it comes to your personal brand because you are essentially kind of like selling yourself on social media in your content, as in you have to be like a content creator that people find likable or can resonate and things like that. So it's not the approach that I would say for that I would give for like a business owner or brand. The approach there would be more so you have to create different types of content where people can resonate. So, for example, you would be like a person that is trying to, show their podcast on social media. You're really trying to like push that forward. But in order for somebody to want to listen to your podcast, watch your podcast, you have to also create other types of content for people to like you enough to listen to your podcast. So, having clips of your podcast is great because maybe they want a piece of information that you mentioned in your podcast, but also having those different types of content where they can get to know you, like your upbringing, what's your background. And again, with what we mentioned prior, not having to share too much if you don't want to, and sharing what you feel comfortable, but having those content pieces to really like build that community that I was talking about. So you can have that community that's interested enough to listen to your podcast. So having those other aspects of yourself is like really important. And that is essentially how you start funneling that in your podcast and for them to like listen and watch and all of that. Because all of this information that you have in your podcast is so valuable. But how do you get them to watch and listen, right?
That was very helpful, by the way. Thank you so much. You explained it really
Yeah,
well. Every
of
time I
course.
talk to you, I'm like, I can't believe I'm getting all this for free. And I feel like I'm literally
Yeah,
just like grazing at the
yeah,
like depth of your knowledge because you've just been doing this for so
yeah,
long.
yeah,
But you've mentioned framework a few times.
yeah.
Why is a framework so important?
Yeah. That's actually a really good question. Yeah, when it comes to like frameworks, when somebody knows, for example, how to approach something, usually it's like a framework, like kind of like a step by step on how you would approach something. And having like a framework is really good because then you know kind of like how to apply it and how essentially you would apply it. And that helps, of course, if you're trying to grow on social media, regardless if it's a business, a brand, your own personal brand, instead of just creating content just to create content. Because a lot of the times people create content, they're like, wait, but why isn't my content working? Like, what's going on? Like, I don't know. Like, a lot of people, of course, like they want to go viral or get views, but that's not really kind of like the purpose. So having a framework helps you create content easier, but it helps you accomplish whatever goal you have faster instead of just going on social media and having kind of like a blank slate and starting over like over and over and over again. So having a framework is really important. So you don't start like at zero, you start with some knowledge and knowing kind of like how you're going to approach content or social media.
So, are frameworks largely dependent on your goals? Like, is it kind of unique
Yeah.
to each person?
Yeah, framework is just essentially kind of like an approach that you would take. But having a goal in mind is super important because then you can use that framework kind of like tailoring it towards that goal. So, for example, a lot of people, they have like already a goal in mind. They're like, okay, I want more views, or I want more saves, or I want more people registered in my workshop, or I want more sales, whatever. But it's like, okay, but like, how are you going to get there? Right? Because a lot of people have a goal in mind, but they don't know how to get there. So having kind of like that framework in your strategy on like how would you approach that with content? How would you approach that on your social media? Because then that will help you get to your goal faster. And so like a lot of people kind of like struggle with that because they just go on social media. They're like, I'm just going to post and be consistent. And yes, that's great. But also like, what is the thought process behind you just like posting, right? Because you can't just like post.
Yeah, I feel like my own process more recently to be more organized and just reduce decision fatigue in general and per like advice that I have heard from other creators or just people that wanna be highly productive and accomplish, like, big goals that they've set for themselves is to say, like, "Okay, I'm going to have these 5 buckets or these 5 themes, and on these days, I'm gonna post something related to that." Is that kind of an example of a framework?
That like what you're mentioning right now is more of like a content calendar, which is kind of like, okay, like on Mondays we'll post this. And a lot of people like the content buckets or like the content pillars, content buckets. But I really don't encourage that too much just because like then when people have like content buckets of like, okay, we have to post something like on Monday, it has to be inspirational. On Tuesday, it has to be educational. On Wednesday, it has to be this. You'll start to feel like very restricted and you're just like, ugh, I have to post this now today or ugh, I have to post this, or like I have to, and I have to. When you don't have to, there's like ways to approach it, but it doesn't have to be like a way that you feel so restricted. You're like, dang, like I would love to talk about this, but I need to like be on like this and this and this because I can't talk about this. When you can, you know, everybody's social media is like their own. But a lot of people feel very restricted with content pillars and content buckets. A lot of people say you have to use content pillars. A lot of people say you have to use content buckets. So now they start to feel like, dang, like I'm probably not succeeding on social media because I'm not doing it like this. When in fact, like you don't have to use like content buckets or like content pillars. I feel like a lot of people like see that a lot and hear that a lot. So they kind of like go there. And I'm curious, do you feel very restricted when using content buckets or do you feel like you have to? Because I know that you're starting to be more consistent on social media. So do you feel like you have to be more restricted? Do you feel like you have to use content buckets? I'm curious to know.
I feel like I'm just struggling to stay consistent because I have
Yeah,
a full-time job and then I'm podcasting on the side. And then I'm also trying to be active on LinkedIn and create short form content to your point of building the personal brand. And yes, it is fun, but I'm just one girl and I have a dog and I like to work out and I
yeah,
try to leave the house every now and then, you know?
yeah,
Like I need to socialize. I love socializing, but I am just trying to figure out like a good system for myself. That's really what it
yeah,
is. There's this really good quote that I hear repeatedly whenever I'm watching or listening to something related to productivity. And it comes from that really popular book, Atomic Habits, which is you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the levels of your systems, something along the lines of that. And just me naturally, I'm a super analytical person. And I love to like really try to have as much like structure and logic and rationale between me doing something. But
yeah.
I've been trying to kind of at the same time let loose a little bit because I feel like that's such a common mistake with social media and content creation. And it's a mistake that I
Yeah.
have made over the last year when I've been trying to get into my groove and stay with it and get into something that will be sustainable for me as well. Worrying too much about the details and not just creating content, to your point.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting that you say that because I actually hear that a lot on social media with business owners. They say, like, I don't want to post this anymore because I feel like I'm losing myself, or I feel like I'm just posting this and it just kind of doesn't feel natural. And that's actually one of the biggest things as to why like clients actually do come to us, really, because they've hired people before and they're like, I feel like I just they were so focused on the goal, the goal, the goal, the goal, the goal, and structure, and like content pillars and all these different things that I feel like I lost my own personality in my content because now I feel like a robot and I feel like I have to post this on Monday, have to post this on Tuesday, and so on. What I tell them is like, you don't have to lose yourself in order to reach your goals because again, it is your social media and it shouldn't feel like restrictive. It should honestly feel like you are encouraged to create things that you like. Because at the end of the day, it is your social media. And of course, like those are things that you would want to see because it feels like it's good to you and maybe other people will like it as well. And so that is like one thing that I hear a lot and I see a lot. where people just feel super restrictive with their social media. But one of the biggest things that friends always do like is like the whole batching, like knowing all these content ideas and they're like, okay, I'm gonna sit down today and tomorrow and I'm gonna try to create as much content as I can and don't have to think about it the rest of the week. So that is just something that I feel like has been very helpful for people that have a lot going on or are busy, busy people.
So almost just saying, okay, I'm going to set aside this designated time, and whatever I feel like I want to creatively express through my content is what I'm going to do. And being
Yeah.
able to batch is going to help you stay consistent.
Yeah, like batching is something that helps a lot of people staying consistent because they can just think about it like maybe just a weekend or maybe just like one time in the weekend. And then like they just kind of like post them throughout the week and they're just like, oh, this is just so much better because I don't have to like wake up every single day and like press record, you know? So that has been like very helpful for so many people.
That makes sense. Do you ever come across people that they're like, I need my pillars, I need my buckets?
Yeah, for structure, and I tend to feel like those are like the people that like need more structure more because they are not like people that are just like creative and they're just like, "Oh, I'm just going to go with the flow, like I'm just going to see." Like they need more structure because they're the ones that are like, "I need to know that the thing that I'm doing is going to get checked off and it's going to get checked off the way that it has to be done." And so for those people, I always recommend like this or having like a almost like a to-do list, things like that, but making sure that they have the same like content that they should be posting because it's still going to have some structure to it. Like a strategy is still going to have some structure to it, but it's just not like content pillars per se. It's just like, oh, you should be posting this on Monday, but it doesn't have to feel restrictive where you feel like you can say things and you can't say things. But it's still going to get done like on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, or whenever you have to post whatever cadence somebody has. But that is something that a lot of people, struggle with because people are so different, you know, like people sometimes are very go with the flow and some other people need structure and some people are very creative and can think about a content idea right now and other people are like, wait, give me like 3 to 5 minutes. I need to think about a good one. So people are so different. And I feel like people need different systems. And so I feel like some people do need more of a structure and other people can just kind of like free ball.
I feel like I lean more towards that. I need structure because otherwise it
Yeah.
just like turns into like this big jumbly mess. And I'm very much someone who gets like analysis paralysis. And because I'm just naturally such an analytical person, I can decide on one piece, but then I'm going to think of like five additional pieces that are adjacent to that. Yeah, I think I just got to work on finding my mix because I think one thing that I've learned throughout my content creation journey is that I used to never consider myself as a creative person. Like, I was just like, I can't draw, I can't sing, I can't dance, I can't paint. But I've learned that I am actually super creative. It just comes out
Yeah.
in a different way than how is more stereotypically thought of.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people think that they're not creative. Like I like sometimes would have conversations with my brother and my brother is very math heavy, extremely logical, thinks very much like black and white almost. And he's always like, I'm just not creative. I can't do this and I can't do this and I can't do this. But I'm like, okay, but you thinking about like for example, when we talk about math sometimes, I'm like, okay, but when we solve like a math problem, you're already thinking about other ways you can solve it, like other ways you can solve it that the teacher isn't thinking about or the teacher isn't going over. That's still being like trying to think very creatively to get to the answer faster or whatever. But it's just like in a different way where it isn't like knitting or crocheting or painting or things like that, you know, because I feel like creativity is so different and it looks very different in people's lives. And I'm pretty sure you're creative. You probably think you're not, but you are. It's just going to look very different, like you mentioned. And the fact that you know now that you're like, wait, but Loki, I am creative, that's honestly really good because that is going to make you feel like, wait, but I can't do these things, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been connecting with some other founders and business owners, and I connected with this guy who with a woman who she has her PhD in biology, but they essentially made a self-assessment test and they use like data and I think like physics and like biology and stuff like that. I'm not reciting this very, very well. They use like actual like data to kind of say like this is your predominant traits and what that means for you and stuff like that. And one of the things that he told me was you think really outside the box and don't let other people not agreeing or seeing the same vision as you discourage you because you are like extremely creative.
I have had a lot of conversations as well with like business owners or just people that want to do content and take it more seriously or just want to be more consistent on social media. And a lot of the times, like you mentioned previously, that a lot of people, there's like people commenting and like they're saying negative things. And I feel like for some people, it gets to them very quickly because they're like, oh my gosh, like, okay, if I'm creating content, I'm being consistent and people are saying this, it must be true. But it's like not necessarily like they're probably just mad because you're doing it and they can't do it or they don't have that confidence to do it. And to somebody that is a content creator, is an influencer or a business owner or is marketing their product, service, whatever, like the biggest thing there is just to like understand that it's going to happen at some point. You just have to know how to handle it, right? A lot of
Mhm.
business owners or creators and influencers, they create content and when they like get their first hate comment or they get more hate than usual in a social media platform or a content piece, they're like, I can't do this anymore, like everybody hates me, like, and it just discourages them. But really, like, it should not discourage anything, because at the end of the day, like I always try to like make the negative to a positive. I'm like, they're just boosting your engagement. Like your content is just going to continue going, and the people that find it that is going to be part of your community, they'll follow you, and then that is that. Because people are still going to comment hate regardless if you have 1,000 followers, 100 followers, 10,000 followers, etc. You just have to understand that it's going to come at some point, and you just have to know that it doesn't matter and they're just people on the internet, and just move along because it's going to happen. It's going to happen eventually to everybody. So,
Yeah. I personally believe if you truly have something important to say, there's always going to be people that disagree with you. Like,
oh,
what
yeah.
kind of input are you putting into this world if every single person is like, oh, yeah, that makes sense?
Yeah.
Um, but I really wanted to ask you. So when I was looking at your website for your agency, you guys mentioned neuromarketing. And I was literally trying to find podcasts on neuromarketing and I was trying to look for content related to it and to kind of learn about it. And I couldn't find anything going into depth.
Yeah, for sure. I always say like we have like a neuromarketing approach. So the way that we approach somebody's like business, we don't just say like, okay, we're just gonna be strategic and we're gonna post this content and we're gonna post this on Monday and Tuesday, or have like inspirational, educational, whatever somebody says. We have the approach of like, okay, when you come to us, we look at your business, like what exactly is the goal there? Let's start there. Like, what is the actual goal? Now, based off of your goal, who are kind of going to be the people that are going to want to follow you, or is it viewership that we're looking for? Like, what exactly is the goal? And now, who are those people that are going to accomplish that goal? And for example, a lot of the businesses, of course, like sell services and products. So most of the time, the goal is like sales or registration or signups, etc. And so then from there, we kind of like reverse engineer, like, okay, that's the goal. Now, who exactly is going to be that person that's going to like want to sign up or follow you, etc. And from there, now we actually start thinking about like that, what we would call like neural marketing, which is like the buyer psychology. What is the psychology behind that person, or the subconscious thoughts rather, that they probably have when they approach your content? What are the subconscious thoughts that they have when they come across your service or your product? What are the immediate objections that they have? A lot of the times they're like, well, I just don't think that it's going to work. That's like the biggest thing that I always hear when it's a new skincare product. But this is probably not going to work. I've already tried a bunch of skincare products. Okay, that's their objection. Like that's the thing that they're like, that's stopping them from buying. But what can you do in your content or in your marketing that kind of like makes them shift that mindset? So like that buyer psychology, like how they buy, those subconscious thoughts that they already have, the objections, the way that they buy. Some people are very analytical and they need all the numbers and they need to know like the ingredients. Some people need to see the before and after. Some people need to trust a person that is talking about said skincare. So it really depends on how people buy. And that is what I like to call that neuromarketing approach, where you really dig into that human behavior on how people buy on social media, because we're all so different and people buy so differently. And so that is what I found success. That's what I love doing. And it's worked for our clients, which makes me really happy because it really doesn't matter how many followers they have or how successful they are on social media now. It just matters how they go about their marketing moving forward. So, yeah, that's a little bit about what neuromarketing is.
Okay. Is neuromarketing something that applies to a social media presence that doesn't necessarily want to sell a product or a service? But like,
Um,
someone that still wants to grow their personal brand or like maybe eventually hopes to like turn their social media into something that they can sell.
Yeah, I feel like you can definitely like mold it to that because I think like when it comes to like an influencer or content creator, I think that the way that they approach content is going to be different because of course they're not selling a thing, but it's more so like kind of like they're selling their personality, they're selling like who they are. So the way that they will approach content is just like, okay, what are some things that will resonate with my audience? Because that is how people will like follow me or that is how people will like me. And that is how you build like that your community, which at the end most people want that community because then at some point you'll have that community and you'll have influence and maybe that community will follow you because of that influence. Um, and then sometimes you'll start using a product or a service. And because they trust you, they want said product or service. So it's like now that is how now brand partnerships start to come into play because if you have that influence, then it's so much easier to get that brand partnership or brand or collaboration partnership, etc., because you have said influence. So that social currency that I'm talking about. But yeah, it would just be like a little bit different. I would like do it a little bit different if I was working with a content creator or influencer, or just like customize it more. So the goal isn't like sales, workshops, registration, but the goal is probably community, followers, or funneling them into something different.
That's so interesting. I know we are up on time. So to close us out, I want to ask you, is there anything you're currently working on that you're excited about? And how can people support you or stay connected with you?
Yeah, of course. So if anybody wants to follow my personal stuff, that the username there is like soothing stars with a Z, not an S at the end. And then if you're trying to see what we're doing on the agency, it's Avrios Media, AVRIOS, and then media, website, Instagram, TikTok, all the same. And then if you're somebody that's interested in marketing or you're trying to learn marketing, we have an educational page called braincells.hq, but instead of CELLS, it's actually SELLS. So brain.cells and then .hq if you want to learn marketing or are interested in marketing. So those are our social platforms.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for joining us today, Vanessa. I feel like I kind of got a little selfish with this episode and I had so many questions that were
No, it's
just making
okay.
me think about my journey but I'm sure I'm hoping it's like applicable to a lot of other people and you gave so much advice that definitely is just transferable across personal branding and across marketing on a large scale. But if anything resonated with listeners in this podcast, please give me a like, follow, leave comments. You can comment on podcasts nowadays. And you can reach me on LinkedIn or my handle is at Gianna Linares, my first and last name on TikTok and Instagram.